Welcome back. The Washington Post under fire once again for its obvious bias against President Trump and his supporters. The paper publishing a cartoon, an insulting cartoon, depicting Republican congressmen and state attorneys general as rats for their support of Trump's legal challenges to the presidential election, particularly in the high court. But, you know, Jesse, I wouldn't call them rats. I think rats is offensive. It's insulting. It's a partisan knife jab. But I would call them lemmings, another kind of rodent creature where they follow the leader no matter what, and it jumps off a cliff, and they all go running off the cliff, and they all get crushed in the canyon floor. You know, I, as a lawyer, looked at the challenges to the presidential election, and I could not believe, frankly, that the state attorneys general were all signing on. You know, it was such a Hail Mary to begin with, had such limited chance of success, Jesse.
I don't think they're lemmings. They're just doing what their constituents believe. And all politicians support their president for the most part. I just see this as politics. Nothing wrong with that, Geraldo. What I don't like about the cartoon is it's kind of like the rat blacklist. Do you remember after the election where AOC had this idea, the Trump Accountability Project, where they were going to name names of all these Trump-supporting Republicans, and they were going to isolate and intimidate and shame them so they could never work again? That's this kind of continuation of that, because it wasn't just anonymous rats. They put their names on there. So there was a message there. The other thing is the hypocrisy. When Donald Trump said that Baltimore, Cummings' district, was rat infested, because remember he was saying he didn't like the conditions down at the border. There was a weak coverage of that, and I have the receipts here. We have the New York Times said infestations justify exterminations. They compared likening insects to vermin and genocide. They called it like Nazi ideology. And he was just speaking as a guy in commercial real estate, not making any sort of equation between Nazi extermination and black people. So I don't think this columnist did that, although it does have a similarity between the propaganda in the Third Reich with those cartoons. I didn't think she meant that, but she didn't give, and they didn't give, the benefit of the doubt to Donald Trump when he used the exact same word.
Well, it seems to me that's all wordsmithing, though, Dana. That's
what
all,
I do.
This one used this. That's what you do, and, indeed. But you know what bothers me about this this mindset among the state attorneys general? I know I'm going a little off on a tangent here, but the mindset is advocating, and some have specifically advocated, including the Colonel Allen West, the head of the GOP in Texas, and the woman who heads the Arizona GOP. They're advocating secession. They're advocating a union within the union or without the union. It's almost like they want a civil war. It's getting very stressful for me personally to watch this this kind of jingoistic rhetoric. And they have, what's her name? Sidney Powell is in the White House.
It's stressing Geraldo out. We better stop. We don't want to stress Geraldo out because these words are upsetting.
That's right.
Geraldo's been in war zones, but
let Dana answer, will you? Quiet, you bullies now. Dana, what do you think?
I think in some ways, she lists everybody here that signed on to it, like members of Congress and everyone. And in some ways, I think in some ways they knew that the Supreme Court would reject it, so they knew their constituents wanted them to do it, so they felt like they could do it. Maybe some of them believe it. Look, we've got some work to do in this country to repair and to move forward together. The one thing I would say about this attempt by the columnist, who obviously would prefer Democrats to be in office, is that this kind of thing is counterproductive. It is not working. I want to underscore for people just how much this idea of cancel culture and elitism against Republicans hurt Democrats down ballot in the down ballot races all across the board. Just look at Nancy Pelosi losing all of those seats. It really did make a difference. And down there in Georgia right now, you have Ossoff saying he never wanted Republicans to show their faces again. You have Warnock calling on Republicans to repent for supporting Trump. And that stuff registers with the voters. And I think that's why you see that those two candidates are starting to fall behind the Republican challengers, because this whole idea of cancel culture, it doesn't work from either perspective. But the Democrats are certainly trying, and a column like this or a cartoon like this doesn't help them.
I agree that it was a political play by the attorneys general. But you don't mess around when you're messing with the republic, the very fabric of the republic. And Katie, I think that this diminishes President Trump's legacy when you keep tearing at the, fighting this war with with the lawyers meeting in the war rooms and General Flynn, and they're talking about calling out some crazy stuff that it sounds like a Bill Maher monologue, Katie.
Well, Geraldo, you are accusing Colonel Allen West and Kelly Ward, who is the GOP chairwoman in Arizona, of wanting a civil war. But I want to get back to what this cartoon implies in terms of that kind of violence and behavior against someone that you are politically opposed to. She drew a bunch of rats and wrote the names of Republicans next to them. She's dehumanizing them by comparing them to rodents. And what do you have to do with rodents, Geraldo? You have to get rid of them. You have to exterminate them. You kill them. So if we want to talk about people implying violence against the other side, cartoons like this are certainly doing that with that kind of messaging by comparing people who just a couple of minutes ago they were saying they wanted to unite with and everyone needed to come around, for the sake of the country and for the republic. This kind of behavior is exactly the opposite and sends the message that Republicans really aren't humans and therefore you can just get rid of them, whatever that means.
It seems to me, Greg, that both sides are guilty of this now.
Both
and it's better
sides.
stop right
what
now
a weasel!
So we can move on.
What a weasel thing to say. Look,
what is that weasel? How's
because
that weasel?
you're purposely avoiding.
Are you saying so the Republicans are innocent?
You completely avoided the essential truth of this story, that we've officially completed the circle of hate. The same people who smeared Trump supporters as Nazis now compared Trump supporters to rats, which is what the Nazis did to the Jews, okay? So the people appear to call you a Nazi are only projecting so they can utilize their Nazi mannerisms against them. That's the circle of hate. And this is a lesson that even in victory, they will hate you. So if people thought that the Trump 2016 win was behind the vitriol for 4 years, no. It merely highlighted what was already there, which is, as Katie said, rats are a way to dehumanize you for the purpose of future destruction. So you can rattle on about how bad this is, that they wanted to.
You are suggesting that denying the results of the election is not adding to the vitriol, is not adding to the hatred, is not adding to the division?
So are you saying that excuses using
what's
rats,
General Flynn doing in the White House?
Nazi imagery?
What's Sidney Powell doing in the White House?
That?
What are they meeting about?
I'm doing the same thing
you're doing.
What are they
talking about?
We're talking about these cartoons.
What are they talking about?
The offensiveness of
cartoons. Coming up, what Joe Biden's team just said about the investigation into his son. Coming up.